Hello guests, I'm your new curator here at the Horror House, and today I'll be telling you about my experience in room number 6, a very eccentric dream. And now let's get right into the story. Just last night / this morning, I had the most odd dream I can ever recall having. And I've had some doozies. I'm going to do my best to describe what I can remember in as much detail as I can. I would almost liken this dream to a video game in the survival horror series. Games like the old Resident Evils or Silent Hill. The dream started out with me looking through the eyes of someone else. This man was not me, but it was almost as if I was inhabiting this individual's body and looking through his own eyes. There was a woman nearby that looked similar to my girlfriend except older, and it was not her. I do not recall her name, even if it was even mentioned. She was a short redhead. There was another man also nearby. He was middle-aged and had slicked back brown hair. I do not recall his name either. I do remember him addressing the man in which I was seeing through as Phil. My name is not Phil. Apparently, something bad was happening, but I can't remember any speech from this portion of the dream. I remember the other man telling Phil that they needed something, but I can't remember what it was. So Phil, hereby referred to as myself, went off on an old dirt path. It was dusk and the area was very isolated in the county. Eventually, I came upon a small market and went inside. It looked like any old country store aside from the blood and dead bodies. A shaken man behind the counter told me to just take what we needed. I cannot remember what it was that was grabbed, but it was small and wrapped in a plastic bag. When I went back outside, a rusty blue truck slid to a stop nearby. The man from earlier was driving it, and the woman was with him. He reached over, opened her door for her, then knocked her out into the dirt. He then stepped out, holding a gun, and cocked it. The gun was very odd looking. It resembled a FAMAS, but had a polished wood features not usually found on a rifle of that sort. I can't remember exactly how, but I was on the ground looking at the woman. It became obvious that this female was Phil's significant other. The man walked over with a rifle and asked me something. I cannot recall what exactly was said, but it had something to do with me dying, and everyone except for the girl dying with him, or the girl dying and everyone else being temporarily spared. I did not understand that at all. Anyway, the woman gave me a nod, and after I answered, she was shot once in the head with the rifle, and I was kicked in the head and knocked unconscious. When I finally awoke, it was dusk again, apparently the next day. I began traveling down another dirt path, and eventually came upon a field of goats. There was a tin barrel in the corner of the pasture with something in it. I decided to check it out. I found the woman from before in it, decaying far faster than a normal body would. It had only been a day, but it looked as if it had been a week. Continuing on my way, I eventually found a school building, and there was screaming inside. For whatever reason, I went inside. Again, there were dead bodies and blood everywhere. Children ran around screaming, strange shadow-like beings with scythes for hands dismembering them. It was very gruesome and difficult to describe. For some reason, I just stood there as all this went on. Eventually things quieted, and I decided to explore this facility. As I passed the girls' bathroom, I heard crying coming from inside and cautiously went in. I'm surprised I didn't awake at this moment feeling sick. Though not as bloody as the main halls, this room was also bloody, and a little girl was huddled in the corner, having vomited on and around the toilet. It was very realistic looking and hard to bear. The little girl addressed me. "Bill, you found me. I've never found out who this child was. She was never seen again, and I just sorta left the school." The whole event seemed very unnecessary. As I continued on my way, things shifted to a different perspective. I was now looking at two individuals from a third-person view. One was the man from before, except he had glowing black wings that seemed to be made of shadow, or some type of aura. He was discussing something with an older gentleman who looked like a scientist of sorts. Again, I can't remember much of what was said. I can't remember anything about the detail of the room either, but I do remember the winged one saying, "Is that all you cared about?" in an angered voice. Eventually, a white glowing aura made a circle on an area of the floor, and the scientist instructed the winged man to step in it. The man obeyed as if he were a puppet. When he stepped inside, there was a blinding light and screaming. When vision returned, the man had been transformed. He was now 3 times the size of a normal man, and dressed in all black, including a sort of armored helmet that seemed to have a crow's beak or sorts. This enigmatic creature had a mournful bellow and crushed the scientist into bits, literally. After that, I was looking through Phil's eyes. I had come upon a quaint country property. Oddly, it was my real-life great-grandmother's home. I'm going to try to describe the layout of my great-grandmother's home for you to more clearly understand what's to come. When you first enter the back door, you are in a sort of porch/foyer. Though another door, you are inside the kitchen. In a corner of the kitchen, there are two doors. One leads to a hallway, the other to the living room. The living room has another door leading to a bedroom, which has another door leading into the hallway. You can enter from the kitchen, forming a loop. In the hallway, there's a door midway down that leads to a storage room. And at the end, there's another bedroom and a bathroom. There's also a set of stairs. Upstairs, there's one large story area and one bedroom. I stepped inside the house. There was no blood, gore, or bodies, but apparently no one was home. I went, though, the kitchen and into the hallway. Just as I neared the middle door, that dreadful creature burst from the door with that same mournful bellow. It was so big, he had to crawl on his knees in order to fit in the house, which made him kind of slow. I turned around and ran into the kitchen, and then into the living room. I went around the loop and up the stairs, but the creature sluggishly continued on the route I had taken. Upstairs, I entered the bedroom and apparently pulled out chains and locks from nowhere and heavily secured the door. I felt safe here. It was peaceful. For whatever reason, I found 3 rocks on the nightstand and looked at the window. I had a plan. Break the window and escape to the roof. I threw 1 rock and then another. They did nothing but crack and mar the window. The third broke through, but only a small hole. It looked like I was trapped. Frustrated, I paced around the bedroom. When I neared the door, the dreadful morning call was heard again, and the door shook violently as this creature apparently rammed it. I leaned against the door as the creature rammed it. The door loosened a little, and I fell backwards, and apparently so did the monster on the other side. Little red numbers appeared and could be seen through the door as if around the monster, almost as if they were characters in some game and had taken damage. I am very fatigued as I struggled to stand. Once on my feet, the monster broke through the door in another one of these dreadful cries and ripped my right arm off. I was again seen from a third-person perspective as Phil fell dead and his body was thrown out the window. With another bellow, I awoke. I felt depressed all morning until about 11:30 a.m. Also, the entire dream was accompanied at various arts by piano music. All of it was very saddening, maybe even frightening, and most songs were dirges that I've heard before. When nothing in particular was going on, however, there was this very haunting melody that I cannot remember ever hearing anywhere before, and though I can play it back even now in my mind, I cannot describe it. It is a very unnerving tune. Alright, so let's get into this creepypasta real quick. Now, this is a creepypasta named Very Eccentric Dream. And eccentric is definitely the way I would describe this. It's a creepypasta that does not seem to have any real solid flow. And he seems to ramble at many points, such as when he has to describe that he plays a character in this dream named Phil, but he isn't Phil. These are obviously points that don't need to be brought up because it doesn't add anything to the story. Much like in around the third, fourth of the story, he had begun to describe his great-grandmother's home layout. Now, this was a good portion of story that just felt like padding. He could have removed this entire portion, focused more on something else instead. Instead, whenever he was describing looping around the house, he could have said just that. I began to loop around the house. However, he did not want to do this. Now, I don't think it's a horrible creepypasta, but I do think it could be improved upon. There are several spelling errors that made it kind of hard to read at times, but it wasn't terrible. All in all, I would say this experience is about halfway. I mean, it has some pretty interesting moments, some interesting descriptions, such as the giant monster with the bird-like beak mask, and other things such as that. But then it also has some very confusing moments, like, him having to point out at the very end about music that's constantly being played in these rooms, as if it really adds anything to the story. So anyways, I would like to know what you guys thought about this. Sorry about the the unusually slow amount of uploads has just been very hard. We've been very tight on time lately, and we haven't gotten around to it. But we should be expecting to start going back to a more regular upload of maybe about 2 per week. And then on top of that, we're also working on a 4-part special that you can probably be expecting to be released sometime later this month. It's going to include me and the other curator, and we're going to be reading it together. So if you guys liked this video, go ahead and leave a like. If you have any comments about it, leave it in the comments section. If you disliked it, dislike the video. And if you're not a subscriber yet, why don't you go ahead and work on that so that way you don't miss any more content from us. Alright guys, I'm your most recent curator. Hope you enjoyed staying with us. Goodbye.